Welcome to everybody. Good morning. And glad to see you in the house of the Lord. Some people not here today are seeing all these empty spaces. So if there's somebody who's normally close to you, you're not seeing them, it might be nice to find out if they're okay, if you have a contact for them, and make sure that everything is all right with them. Glad to have all of you in the house of the Lord today. We did mention on Tuesday morning, to remind you that we have our Kingdom Breakthrough services on Tuesday morning at 11:30. And if you're around, if you work in the area, if you have a day off, we encourage you to come and to join that service. Amen? And we have our prayer meeting on Wednesday night. Remind you as well, that's a time for us to get together and pray. And, we're working to make it as effective as possible so that when you come, you feel it is worth your while to make the effort to come. So please remember as well our prayer meeting on Tuesday morning. I want you to turn today to the book of Ezekiel. I read my Bible through from start to finish. And I am now in the book of Ezekiel. I can't remember when I started. Well, that's where I am now. And this week, I read Ezekiel chapter 35. This week or last week, I read Ezekiel chapter 35. And some things really jumped out at me that I felt the Lord wanted me to share with you today. Ezekiel 35. And we're going to read the chapter. I'm going to kind of take my time today, so I'm probably not going to finish. And probably continue next week. Ezekiel 35. Everybody has it? Right, let's read responsively. I'll read the first verse. You'll read the next, beginning from verse 1. The word of the Lord came to me. Verse 2, you read? And say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Mount Seir, and I will stretch out my hand against you and make you a desolate waste. Because you harbored an ancient hostility and delivered the Israelites over to the sword at the time of their calamity, the time their punishment reached its climax. I will make Mount Seir a desolate waste and cut off from it all who come and go. I will make you desolate forever. Your towns will not be inhabited. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I will treat you in accordance with the anger and jealousy you showed in your hatred of them, and I will make myself known among them when I judge you. You boasted against me and spoke against me without restraint, and I heard it. And verse 15 we can read together. Because you rejoiced when the inheritance of Israel became desolate, that is how I will treat you. You will be desolate, Mount Seir, you and all of Edom. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I want to just read one verse over again. Verse 5, it says, because you harbored an ancient hostility and delivered the Israelites over to the sword at the time of their calamity, the time of their punishment reached its climax. My topic today is confronting ancient hostilities. Confronting ancient hostilities. And I have to warn you that I might say some things that are provocative today and might get you a little uneasy. But you live. I want to start by identifying the roots of ancient hostilities. Identifying the roots of ancient hostilities. And I want to make this observation that, there's a word there, the word is ancient, right? The word is ancient. And I'll explain to you in a little bit. Ancient hostilities always have their roots in the past and our inability to move beyond the experiences of the past. I'll repeat it. Ancient hostilities always have their roots in the past and our inability to move beyond the experiences of the past. Now I'm going to point to three areas. One historical, the second personal, and the third which I call societal. That one will upset you a little bit perhaps. One historical, one personal, and the third societal. Things that are at the root of ancient hostilities. So historically, there are past hurts and disappointments, as we mentioned. In Numbers chapter 20, verse 14, we are told that Moses sent messengers to Edom. Now, Edom is another name for Esau. Edom means red. Esau was named Esau because he was red. Edom is another name for Esau. He got that name because of his color when he was born. So Moses sends to Edom, Numbers 14, when they were at Kadesh, he sent to the king of Edom, and this is what your brother Israel says. You know about all the hardships that have come upon us. Our forefathers went down into Egypt. We lived there many years. The Egyptians ill-treated us and our fathers. But when we cried out to the Lord, he heard our cry and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. Out of Egypt. Now we are here at Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. So the picture is, it's the Exodus. And the children of Israel are moving to the promised land. And they come to Edom. And they ask to pass through. So verse 17, Moses continues, please let us pass through your country. In verse 18, I'm avoiding reading through all of it. In verse 18, but Edom answered, you may not pass through here. If you try to march out, we will attack you. If you try, we will march out and attack you with the sword. Then when you go down to verse 19, Moses asks again. He says, we only want to pass through on foot, nothing else. And verse 20, again they answered, you may not pass through. Then Edom came out against them with a large and powerful army. Now, there is a story behind this. There is a story behind this. Let me give you a little bit of biblical chronology. Hopefully you could follow it as to how this happened. According to biblical chronology, Jacob was born about 1836 BC, before Christ, or before the Christian era. He was 77 years old when he fled to Padan Aram, that's to Laban. And why did he flee? because he took possession of his brother's birthright. You know the story, right? Now, I chose my words carefully. He didn't steal it. His brother sold it to him. But he took possession of it by subterfuge. We know that. He dressed in, he put on, his mother helped him, and he fooled his father. But Esau had sold it to him. It really belonged to him. And that's a whole different story by itself, what Esau did. But because he did this, so he was, how old? 77 years old. Remember when he was born 1836 BC, when he fled to Padan Aram, as a result of taking possession of his brother's birthright. So that is 1759 BC. Are you still following me? I'm going somewhere, right? He returned to Palestine at the age of 97. But he stayed 20 years. He worked 7 years for Rachel, 7 years for Leah, and then he stayed another 6 years before he returned. So he returned at the age of 97, that is 1739 BC, when he was reconciled to Esau, or Edom. And you might remember that story, when he sent all these gifts ahead, and then when he came and he was so afraid, he was expecting Esau to attack him, and Esau came and embraced him, and so on, after he had this encounter with God. God could make our enemies our friends, by the way. So the actual event that caused this hostility that is referred to, you see, when it talks about this ancient hostility, is the problem that Edom had with Israel. Are you following me? So the event that caused this hostility between Israel and Edom occurred 1173 years before Ezekiel chapter 35. Are you still following me? Right. It showed up during the Exodus that we read. And this was around 1446 BC, which was 313 years after the event. It showed up. And then now, 1173 years later, it shows up again. This is 860 years after the Exodus. You still following me? I'm going somewhere, right? You talk about carrying a grudge. So Edom carried a grudge against Jacob, who is Israel, for 1173 years. As we are saying in Trinidad, you talk about totin. Isn't that alarming? Except, how long you carrying yours? Quiet. I was talking to one man. I was talking to he and his wife about, I knew him to be very engaged in church at another church I pastored before I went there. When I went there, he was just sitting down. So I was talking to he and his wife, just doing a marriage checkup with them. And I asked the question, why are you sitting down? And he said, because when I got married, so and so happened. And he told me what happened. And since that, so I said, I ain't doing nothing in this church, and I sit down. Now mind you, let me give you a disclaimer. I don't know all your business. So I'm not talking to nobody in particular. Right? I was talking to him, I think, maybe that might have been 2012. I asked him, when that happened? 1982. Don't laugh because somehow you're just so. Talk about toting. 20 years. If I might have miscalculated, yeah, it might have been 92, but it was 20 years. 20 years! He decided, I ain't doing nothing. 20 years. Or inability to get past the past. Psalm 137, verse 7, it says, remember, O Lord, what the Edomites did on the day Jerusalem fell. Tear it down, they cried. As in people in trouble. Tear it down, they cried. I'll tell you a story just now about a neighbor. Tear it down to its foundations. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 10, where it says, because of the violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered with shame, you will be destroyed forever. 1,100 years, almost 1,200 years. Totin. Can't get past the past. Historical, there's a historical context to this chapter, and I'll show you what resulted. And then, of course, there are the personal roots. Our own personal hurts and disappointments with people. Especially people who matter to us. You know, if you don't matter, you don't bother us. People who matter to us. You know, the psychologists and therapists use the term significant others. I don't like them kind of cliche terms, but, you know, significant others. And that could mean some other things too. People who matter to us, who let us down. For some of us, it's a parent. I told you this story about the fellow who didn't come to his mother's funeral. Remember that one? I think it was you I was telling that. I tell stories all over the place. I don't remember why I tell the same story. And when you get old people are telling the same story over and over and over and over. And they can't remember, they tell it already. I just forget who I tell which story. Come to his own mother's funeral because something that happened when he was small. You all remember the story, right? If you were here. If you're not here, you must miss church. Sometimes it's a friend who let us down. We're expecting something from them and they didn't come through, or they promised something and they disappointed us. That mattered to us. Or they divulged their confidence. I shared something with them and they went and tell other people. You know, that's if you have a certain view of a secret. A secret is something you only tell one person at a time. And you say, don't tell nobody, eh? It's a secret. Or a spouse. And sometimes people come and they sit to talk to me and they tell me their story. Pastor, when I got married, I had such high hopes. My husband was a Christian and I did so and so and so, and look what he did to me. Or look what she did to me. And sometimes those things leave us broken. Only on TV, divorce is happy. And not in the real world. Or a sibling. A brother or sister. My father say I was supposed to get the house, and my brother in the house, and he wouldn't come out, and he have a house of his own, pastor. And he trying to put me out. Pastor, I tell you, one day I start to sharpen the cutlass. I said, today, I'm going to kill everybody. I'm talking about believers, eh? Everybody believers. The T4 and the T3. Ain't got that one. Or a church member. Anytime you see people start to talk, okay, you know when you're in front, girl, it's how it is, right? You know by now. About them people. I know we have a way we just put it in Trinidad. Them church people. Church don't sound refined enough. It ain't bad enough. It's them church people. My wife uncle who I told you died suddenly, he say, all of we is demon. And them church people is the biggest demon because them claim to know God. He wasn't saved. I know what happened to him when he gets out. That could be at time. I had some long conversations just a week before he died. Them church people. And them calling me demon. Are you there? And you could add whatever else. You know, I hear people say church people are terrible. Wait till you get a real hold of them bad people in the world. I've been in both settings. You know, Christian people who say to me, I'm not hiring no church people. Them church people are not dependable. Hello? So anytime you're talking about Marabella Open Bible and you're saying, them people in Marabella, what's wrong with you? How come they become them people? Where were you? It's when there is a disconnect. So you see us and them. So I inside here are talking about them. And there could be other things happening, but I better don't say that. They're not sure to offend you. Smile. You're not on candid camera. So there was this historical setting. There are these personal things, and some of us thought, like this fella I told you about, 20 years. He thank God he's involved and so on now. You know, because we talked and he got past it. 20 years. Sit down. That's what the church people doing. Are you there? Listen. People hurt people. Are you hearing me? We hurt people because we are people. Are you there? And people are imperfect. Even when we're trying our best, we still hurt people. Because we are flawed. Are you following me? And you know, sometimes when you're hard on people who hurt you, it's good to stop and review how many people you hurt. It's the nature of the world in which we live. We hurt one another. We love one another. I surely hurt one another. Hopefully not every day. But now and again, you behave bad. Or you intend good and it end up. Anybody who married a long time, you know that. Ramesh, I tell the truth? My distinguished brother here, I tell the truth? We hurt one another. See, you know, so I don't want to be unkind, but sometimes we have to grow up. We have to grow up. Get a little resilience. Not that we enjoy being hurt, not that we encourage people to hurt us, not that we ought to hurt other people. As long as you're living in the world, you will be hurt. As long as you're living in the world, not just by the people who don't like you. Sometimes you are hurt the most by the people who are supposed to love you and who you love the most. It's a fact of life. And another time I will talk about that, but you had to make a choice, you know. You could choose isolation. It's a choice. You could choose isolation. So I'm not really to nobody because people has hurt me. It's a choice. Every choice has a consequence. May not be the best choice, but instead to reprogram your head a little bit. I say, listen, boy, as long as you're around people, you get hurt, you know. So I tried my best not to. I tried my best not to hurt people. But should it happen, you deal with it. And you try to move on. Not like Edom, 1,100 years. When will you let it go? When? I'm not talking to anybody. I don't know nobody's business. I just tell you what the Lord told me to share the passage with you, and I'm sharing the passage. This is what comes out of the passage. Wait till we are going now. We have some ancient hostilities that are deep-seated in our societies. Sometimes there are things we inherit, and often without conscious thought. Where are they located? Race. You know, that is a taboo word. People don't like to talk about that. Black versus white versus Indian versus African versus Chinese versus mixed. Deep-seated thing. Some of us were taught some things. All Indians are so-and-so. All Africans are so-and-so. Them Chinese people used to sing, Chinese, Chinese never die. Flat nose and chinky eye. Stereotypes about people. White people don't bathe. With all due respect, I don't believe those things. But I'm telling you, they deep-seated things. I don't want to say anything about East Indians and Africans because that's a blend here and you might get offended. But all you know, that people, very deep-seated things. Ancient hostilities, they have their roots in our history. Who was here first? Who was here next? Who get what? Who should be on top? Who should control? Don't sell Petrotrin to the 1%. I'm coming back to that one. Class. Karl Marx said there are two of them. We had another one in the middle. The bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie are the people who own the factors of production. The proletariat are the people who sell their labor. That's how you like what we say, right? That's the union thinking. And Marx, his whole theory of society was how these two groups would be at war with one another, and this war with one another would transform and create societies and destroy them. Class. And determined by different things. So the part of the Petrotrin thing is class, the 1% thing. But the 1%, supposed to be the Syrians. And you have more than class there coming back. I'm showing you these ancient hostilities in the society. And then you have color. The light skin and the dark skin. So some people are saying the Honorable Prime Minister shouldn't be Prime Minister because he's too dark. Deep-seated things. I go to Cuba a lot. Cuba has fair-skinned people and dark-skinned people because of their origins, Spanish, and then the African slaves and the mix. You know who rules? The fair people. The fair people. I don't recall any Cuban minister who is black. The fair people rule. You go to Jamaica, look at the people who run in the country. The famous prime ministers, Norman Marley, Edward Seaga. Huh? Fair people. We had a problem in our country and people was complaining, all them bank people is fair people. That changed now, so more people working for next to nothing. Fair people. You go to Venezuela, you see the same thing. It's beyond it more. And you know the fair people, white people, you know where that come from in our country? The rulers were always the Europeans. Deep-seated things, ancient hostilities. Next thing, Janice wants to marry some fella and you saying, but he too black. Christian people do that, you know. True. People sometimes sit down good in church for years until your daughter with straight hair wants to marry my son with the crooked hair. Now, Trinidad is a funny place, eh? My wife's grandfather is a white man, European. You will not believe that. My great-grandmother was a Carib. Look at my dad ahead. Since I small, I want soft hair. My son trying hard to make it soft. I want to tell him it's hereditary, boy. You can't get past that. You know who is who, you know. You know, if we had more of this ancestry DNA, we'd be surprised something we have find out about who is who. But we look at color, it goes to this historical thing about who has value. Ancient hostilities. Then you have education. Goes back to the teachings of the philosopher Plato. He said the philosophers must rule, or the kings must become philosophers. Because they are the only ones who are able to see the society accurately. The other people only interested in their belly. If you listen to politicians and the way they operate, if you understand this stuff, people manipulate us. The answer is never any politics. They manipulate us, everybody. And the same people benefit because money rules the world. No matter what your color is, money rules the world. Every country you go to, money, the money class rule the world. While we put on jerseys and walk up and down the road. With all due respect to people who have strong political affiliations, I don't have none. Are you there? Hope you ain't getting vexed too early. Education, intelligentsia, bright people. Part of the discussion me and my wife uncle had was this. He said, listen, all them smart people, them people mash up the world. It's very strong. You know, we used to like to talk to him. Very intelligent. And listen to his arguments. You don't have to go to school to have sense. Guy could barely read. I talk to him. Thanks. He said, all them intelligent people, because them is the people who control. And he right. Look at the US presidents. Who are they? Apart from the last one. But who are they? Graduates from famous law schools, from Ivy League colleges. Who are they? Look at Trinidad and Tobago. We don't look deeply enough, you know. You ever listen to the Mr. Pandey speak? I used to listen to him. Most of the man's images are Christian images. Because he went to a Presbyterian school and then a Catholic school. And listen to his images. He used the Hindu images when it suits his purpose. I know everybody on both sides, people do that. They manipulate us. But if you listen to him talk, and you're hearing Christian images. Because he went the same school like the other people. He and the person on the other side went the same school. For the privileged. And some of us want our children to go to privileged school, not because it's good for them, because it looks good on us. All right, that's just by the way, that probably. Looks good on us. Education. Now Paul makes a powerful observation in Galatians chapter 3 verse 28. He says there is neither Jew nor Greek. Because the Greeks consider themselves the intelligentsia. Elsewhere it says the Greeks seek after knowledge. So they used to pride themselves on being above the Jew. He says in my kingdom there's neither Jew nor Greek. Then he says there's neither male nor female. That's our next part of this deep-seated thing that I come into. Gender. And he says there is neither bond nor free, class and status. He says in Christ it's all removed. Still need to get it out of the church, but it's all removed in Christ. And then we have male versus female. Now, historically, there have been some disadvantages that women have encountered and to some extent still encounter. We talk about the glass ceiling, that they can't get up to certain heights in companies and their salary, there are differentials in their salaries and so on. All of this which is unfair and a movement arose to try to address this. But there's a version of that movement that want to destroy everything male. That degrades maleness. And look at a lot of them women who do that, they're single. They can't hate men and want to marry one. Then go work. And then we have political affiliation are still going. UNC, PNM, COP, the other thing, social justice or whatever. Not much of anything, but. And you have other stuff, me even know the name, Deep-seated things. And the problem is that all of this thing connected, race, color, class. We just start to smell elections and the race thing start to play up. We just start to smell elections. It is predictable. And on both sides, nobody better than nobody. It's all mirrors and shadows. I go stuff and you see them fellas interact. You never know them that behave in Parliament. All of them sit down drinking and think together. And they fool us up. My brother was my brother who died, he's a real PNM stalwart. But but you'll get good stories. You get good inside stories. Are you still there? And then you have social status that link to all of this. It linked to gender, it linked to income, it linked to color, it linked to political party. Where are we going with all of this talk? Ancient hostilities, deep-seated things in our societies and our communities that find their way into the church. I remember the time when, in fact, this week I was reading something from somebody who said, when I asked to go to a Pentecostal church, my mother tell me I can't go. Them is cults. Because only poor people used to go to them churches. Well, they're not around long enough to know that. Only poor people go to them Pentecostal churches. Now we get so stush that I talking to somebody and she say, I so poor, I don't belong there. I try to do something. People say, who is she? How has the table turned? Now we are the sophisticated. And we're in parliament and people now, poor people who build up Pentecostal churches sometimes feel they don't belong. I'm not educated and so there's no place for me. Talk to me and all they're getting upset. When they're getting quiet, they're getting upset. I don't mean to upset you, but you have to hear me out. The roots of ancient hostilities. There was a historical setting. There are the personal things that are deep-seated and when we can't get past the past. And there are the things in our communities and societies, not just here in Trinidad. When I talk to people from any country, the story is the same. About the politics, about corruption, about who is in, the story is the same. It's not unique to us. So I challenge you to think about who you are and where you are. Preaching is not supposed to make you comfortable. When you're comfortable, you're not learning anything. Apologies if I stepped on your sensibilities. I don't get up Sunday morning saying how I could upset people. I'm going to stop. And I'll pick up next week. I'm going to show you the results. From that same chapter, I'll show you the results. What happens when we don't deal with ancient hostilities? And then I will show you how God responds. Are you there? So I'll stop. It's time to stop. But I'll stop with this one observation that I made earlier about what Jesus said. Here's Galatians chapter. See if I can find it. Chapter 3, verse 28. Talking about Christ. If there is any place where everyone should feel a sense of belonging, it should be the church. If there is any place. Whether I am male or female, whether I am rich or poor, whether I am educated or uneducated, whether I am viewed as having high class and status or low, or middle, or whatever the others are. There are others. If there is one place And Paul addresses in Galatians because the Jews were having an issue with the Gentiles in the church. And Paul gave this reminder. It says, in Christ, there is neither Jew nor Greek. We have to become blind to those distinctions. There is neither male nor female. We have to become blind to those distinctions. There is neither slave nor free. We have to become blind to those distinctions. Else we are less than the church Jesus died for. And the church Jesus died to create. Anybody in the book of James, James says, they claim to be righteous, and he says you show respect of persons. So if a man comes in who is well dressed, you bring him to the front and you say, sit here. So if someone comes in who is poor, you say, find a seat where you can find one. And he says, you do wrong. You do wrong. So whether you're fair, whether you're dark, and you know you have fair and dark and black. In our society. Whether you're dark, whether you're black, you have value. Whether you're educated, it's good to be educated and you should educate yourself. Or you are not, you have value. Whether you're male or you're female, you have value. We don't cater to anything else. Whether you're high class or you're low class, or like in India, you're no class, you have value. And as we look at the people around us, we must remind ourselves that they have value. And we must treat them like they have value. And we must not become a church that discriminates. And we must not become a church that is so stush that those who are not stush cannot find a place. They will find a place somewhere else. But we must always be a place that values and receives people because Jesus shed his blood for them. Because Jesus, just like he shed his blood for me, shed his blood for you. And before him, we have equal value. So I say to people, I don't have no favorites. And some people say, Pastor Eli, well, watch me long enough. Everybody here belongs. And everybody here has value. And I will treat you like you belong. And I will treat you like you have value. I have to relate to different people in different ways because of what they do. So I relate to some people more because of what they do. But everybody has equal value. Are you understanding me? Equal value. And that's how we must see people. Amen? Amen. I've made my point for today.